Welcome back. 74 days to go in the midterm sprint. It's on. President Trump heading to South Carolina today, campaigning for Senator Darlene Graham, ahead of Tuesday's Republican runoff against Congressman Ralph Norman for the seat once held by her brother, Lindsey Graham. Trump isn't the only one hitting the trail. Vice President Vance is back in his hometown of Middletown, Ohio. He's returning to the steel plant where his grandfather worked for nearly 4 decades, and he's making the case against socialism.
If these radicals take control of Congress, they're going to pass the craziest agenda America has ever seen. You're not going to have to take my word for it. You just got to hear these guys actually talk about it themselves. One incoming Democrat congresswoman wants to abolish prisons, she wants to abolish police, and she wants to abolish the borders. And let me just say, that's the only real question on the ballot in November. Do we believe in America, or do we believe in nothing?
And after that warning, the vice president hit up a local restaurant. He served beer and Cincinnati chili to diners. And his old Senate seat, it's on the line this November. Republican John Husted is facing former Democrat Senator Sherrod Brown. As that midterm battle heats up, Vance has his own way of summing up both sides of the aisle. He's doing it one word at a time.
Crazy. Look-alike. Lame. Awesome. Hardcore. Tough. Communist. Interesting. Odd. Funny. Cranky. Kind. No comment.
2 minutes later.
I mean, nothing. Irrelevant. Generous.
And Cranky Chuck, he has 3 words for the Democrat Party.
I wonder, what your take is. You have a sort of surprising upset in Florida, right, with the candidate who certainly more to the left of, the candidate backed by, folks like you. What do you make of this rise of the GSA and what that could mean for the Senate?
Well, we're a big tent party. And, not everyone has the same exact view on every single issue.
A big tent, that's what we keep hearing. But who exactly is calling the shots, or soon will be, inside that tent? Joining me now, White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller, who I believe the Vice President described in that video, Stephen, one word, hardcore. Is that how you would self-describe as well, hardcore?
I'm hardcore when it comes to being pro-American, all the time, every day. Just like the leader of our country, President Trump. America first.
I think it's a pretty apt description, Stephen. I do. I'm going to tell you a little secret. Every time I talk about socialism or the DSA, we have these graphics we put up. And it'll say things like the campaign promises of most socialist candidates. Medicare for all. Public-run grocery stores. Free buses. Soda machine in the Commons. And every time this goes up, this graphic, there's lefty aggregators that grab it and go, yeah, sounds great. What's so scary, Fox? What's your response to that wish list of promises, Stephen?
Well, you have to understand, Will, who are they trying to redistribute from and to whom? The fundamental mistake that Republicans and conservatives make when talking about and dealing with socialists is assuming that we're having a rational, good faith conversation about the distribution of assets in this country. In other words, there's a group of people who all love America, who love Americans, who love the people who built this country, who love the middle class, and we're having a rational, good faith conversation about who should get what in this country and in what amount. You know that famous expression, right? A rising tide lifts all boats. Having that conversation assumes that you are talking to somebody who cares about everybody's boat equally. When you think about, for example, the Somali refugees in Minnesota and Ilhan Omar, that's not the heuristic that they're using to talk about prosperity. They're thinking about it as the people who built this country, Western civilization, the generations that have been here, that blazed the trails, that won the wars. We are taking from them to give to ourselves and our progeny. It is a purely tribalistic redistribution. So in other words, the foundation of DSA, of the modern Democrat Party, of Democrat socialism, Marxism, in all of its forms. In other words, what unites the jihadists, the Islamists, the open borders crowds, the Democrat socialists, the radical leftists, what unites them all is saying that you American, you who built this country, you who sweat and toil and sacrifice created this country, you who sublimated your own desires so that your children and their children could have something better, you don't deserve to have security anymore, physical safety, economic safety. These jobs, this country, this education system, it doesn't belong to you. So when you think about, for example, public schools, half of kids in New York public schools can't speak English properly. Why? Because 40% of New York City public or New York State school students are either migrants or the children of migrants. They're redistributing education from the tax-paying base to newcomers. It's driven not by a belief in Karl Marx, a hatred of the West and the people who created it. That's the key point.
Okay, you used an interesting concept, an interesting phrase, an interesting word. You brought up tribes, tribal distribution. You know, it is a fact that capitalism does, in fact, produce inequality. The idea is every economic system produces some measure of inequality. In capitalism, that inequality is sorted. The concept is through merit, that those who can will, and they will often earn more than those who can't. Now, socialism offers a different framework to redistribute wealth. It offers a different framework on who gets what. And you bring up that it is by tribal bounds. So what and who are they trying to give the spoils of their new economic system to?
Well, look at, for example, look at the George Floyd era, look at the Black Lives Matter era, look at the 4 years between 2021 and 2024 and the DEI policies. They were explicitly clear about who's not entitled to opportunity in this country, who's not entitled to jobs in this country, who's not entitled to fair and equal treatment in this country. Again, look at our university system. Right? A young kid from Appalachia does not have even remotely the same chance with superior test scores as a migrant who showed up here 2 days ago. They're very clear about this. So when you talk about the distribution of wealth, understand this. America is only, I think, maybe 4% of global population or thereabouts, but 25% of the world's GDP and wealth. Their fundamental view is that shared wealth that was created by generations of Americans has to be redistributed to the rest of the world. That is the socialism that they're practicing. If they were socialists under a kind of America First model, it would still be a failed ideology. It still wouldn't work in pure market terms. But then you would have somebody like Sherrod Brown who would then say, I'm opposed to immigration, I'm opposed to open borders, I'm opposed to DEI. Right? I want to redistribute wealth from the capital to the labor class within our own communities. Instead, a guy like Sherrod Brown votes for every single open borders bill that has ever been presented in the history of Congress. He will gladly, if you're an electrical worker, he will gladly give your job to any foreign worker plucked from anywhere in the world willing to do it for 10, 20% less. This is the point. It's completely pretextual. What I'm saying is, if you think, dear Republican, if you think that Ilhan Omar's views about wealth and capital comes from a patriotic place and a sincere market view, no. It is an intellectual mask, a cover, to take from you. The Democrat Party has stitched together a coalition of tribal grievances. What makes the West very unique and special in the whole history of the world is the idea of sublimating your own self-interest for the sake of your neighbors in a completely voluntary, cooperative way. That's very rare and very unique.
I totally understand what I think you're suggesting. You're actually also distinguishing what we're watching take place in America under the banner of democratic socialism from even the original socialists under Karl Marx. This isn't the socialism of the labor class versus the capitalist class. And I think that's an important distinction, if in fact you're right, Stephen, because many on the right are discussing this as well today. I asked the vice president, what do you say to the person that says, I don't feel like I can do as well as my parents did in this country? And they're turning to socialism. But what you're telling us is today's socialism is actually not even worried about class systems. It's not worried about labor versus capital. It's only worried about tribes and using socialism as the mask to redistribute within tribes.
Correct. The Democrats, so there's two groups, basically. You have people like Chuck Schumer and people like Sherrod Brown, who have made a completely amoral, cold-blooded political calculation. And then you have the actual tribal interest groups themselves. And again, Ilhan Omar is the best example of this, Rashida Tlaib, Abdul in Michigan, who they are using this as an intellectual cover, as a way to put a veneer on this purely tribalistic calculation. So again, what unifies Islamists and leftists, right? This normally you wouldn't think, how is that a logical political coalition? It's that they're both in agreement about taking away from the group of people who've built this country over many, many generations, right? Versus the migrant who comes here and says, I owe you an allegiance because of everything that you've done and everything that you've built to support that system. And that's what's created very tragically, Will, in this country, this existential weight on our political outcomes. Because once politics is tribalized, it becomes an all or nothing game. What we had in America for many generations was so special and unique because it wasn't an all or nothing game. But once it becomes tribalized, then the stakes become existential. And you're not able to appeal to your opponent based on pure reason, because pure reason appeals assume there's a shared end state. When there isn't a shared end state, then it just becomes completely binary. And that's one of the saddest things that's happened in American politics over previous years that brought us to this point.
And by the way, we've seen that experiment play out on the world stage over centuries. The zero-sum game of tribal dynamics, fighting over limited resources. This was the unique experiment that set those aside and said, we will sort this out according to merit. I wanted to do this longer conversation with Stephen with really no topic-driven conversation. I knew it would get a little deeper and a little more philosophical, and it's satisfied today. I hope to do it more. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you, my friend.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.